All right, welcome everybody to the Takeover. My name is Matt Johnson. I am your host today. This is the show where B2B business leaders come to learn about how to grow their business, how to drive positive change, and how to build a legacy that stands the test of time. I'm so grateful that you were able to join us today. I'm excited about this episode, guys, because we have with us a certified EOS implementer, Rene Boer. He is going to discuss the Traction book and the EOS model. If you haven't heard of the Traction book, you guys have to check this out. This was something that I came across about a year and a half ago, and this has been an exciting and very, very helpful model of helping me understand how to lead my business, how to work on my business, not in my business. So a little bit of a backstory before we introduce Rene with you guys today. So the Traction book came as really a godsend to me. So we were growing the business very quickly. We were hands-on as a leadership team. We were doing a lot of stuff in the business, and we had big goals and big aspirations, but we didn't know how to organize our business so that we were really making positive movement and really reaching our goals. We had goals. We just weren't sure how to keep our finger on the pulse of those goals and how to reach those on a consistent basis. And this book has been very, very helpful. It's helped us build a system of running our entire company. And it's very, very simple, and I think that's why I like it the most. That it's a very simple book to read. It's a very simple system to understand, but implementing it is a whole nother story. And that's why we have Rene on with us today. Rene, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me, Matt. I'm excited to be here, talk about my favorite subject.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited too, and we're going to get into some real interesting conversation here, I'm sure. This is something that a lot of businesses deal with, is just learning how to put a system and organize their company. So I want to start, Rene, just by having you just share a little bit about your background. Tell us a little bit about where you're coming from, like maybe some of your experience, and tell us how you ended up working with the EOS model as a certified implementer.
Yeah, so just a quick story. I was actually born in the Netherlands. My parents and younger brother and I emigrated here when I was about 5 years old. They came here for the opportunity, not the guarantee, for a better life, and they certainly achieved that. I grew up in Wisconsin, so I'm a Green Bay Packer fan, for all of you listeners. Was the first kid in my family to go to college. I went to the University of Wisconsin at Stevens Point. I worked my way through at a place called Pizza Hut, and started as a part-time employee, and that eventually led to a 35-year career in the restaurant industry as a business owner, a franchisee, a corporate executive, working with some very well-known brands. And after about 35 years in that industry, Matt, I burned out. I was thinking about the next chapter of my life and what am I going to do? And just reflecting back, I mean, one of the things I've always enjoyed about that industry was helping leadership teams succeed. And about that time, this was back in 2007, I got introduced to Don Tinney, and Don was Gino's partner, helping Gino grow EOS. And this was about the time that Gino published the book Traction. And so I began a new career as an EOS implementer working in the Chicago market, and I've been doing that for the last 11 years.
Wow, that's awesome. So the restaurant business, and then that took you into leadership, and you saw some of the pain points that leadership had in that industry, and you felt like the EOS system really was a powerful tool. Now, did you get a chance to implement that at all with any of the restaurant businesses that you were a part of?
So interestingly enough, after starting, my very first client was a construction company. My second client was a packaging company. And about 50 clients later, I started working with my first restaurant client. So
wow.
just to say that having a certain expertise in one industry is not important when you think about implementing EOS and traction, because it's relevant to any industry. And if the kind of struggles that the service industry has versus transportation or manufacturing or packaged goods or whatever, it's the same kinds of challenges. You know, as business owners, everyone's frustrated and struggling with the same things. So it's that sense that we're kind of losing control of our business as it's growing. Sometimes it gets to the point where maybe the business is outgrowing our ability to manage it and run it, and you just feel frustrated by that lack of control. And then sometimes people are frustrated because they're running a successful business, but it got stuck. You know, it stopped growing, and the people that help get you to a certain level, you start realizing maybe aren't the people that help you get it to the next level, which then leads to a frustration around people, right? That you either don't have enough of them, or they're just not the right people in the right seats. And then, of course, another frustration is profit or the lack thereof. You know, so as the business stops growing, unfortunately, your costs continue to go up. So there's that constant struggle to produce enough cash out of your business to be able to reinvest in it. And then that gets us to what a lot of people are frustrated by, and that is that they try a lot of things, but nothing seems to be working. And that's about the perfect time to discover EOS and discover traction, because it actually does work. It works because of the simplicity of the system.
That's just like my story. So I had gotten frustrated because I was trying to get over the hump and get to the next level. And I know that a lot of businesses that we work with that are listeners of the show, they have that same pain point. They're trying to get to the next level. They can't they can't get a grip on the business, and that's of course what the subtitle of the book is: Get a Grip on Your Business. And I feel like this is a really relevant topic for those folks, and that's about the time when you said, like, you start looking for answers, and this book comes along and provides those answers. Now, for those of our listeners who have not read the book yet, could you give us just like maybe a quick overview of what the EOS system is and what the Traction book proposes?
Yeah. So in the book Traction, the context is, as Gino points out, as a business owner or a member of the leadership team or anybody in a leadership management position, everyone struggles with the same 136 issues. And a lot of times I throw that number out there and people say, I think you missed a digit. It's more like 1,136 issues. So in other words, there's a lot of stuff going on in business. But when you look through the lens of an EOS model, and the EOS model is made up of 6 key components, all those issues are really symptoms of root causes, and those root causes lie within those 6 key components. So the first one is vision. Is there a clear organizational vision for where the company is going, why it's important, and how it's going to get there? And are people really aligned around that? And the second component is people. Do you really have great people? And everybody says they feel like they do, but great people is really having a good definition of what that means for your organization, and that's what we help clients discover, is what defines great people, and then how do we go out and attract them and retain them and develop them? And so you'll never reach that vision without people. So this is a system that relies heavily on people, and if you don't genuinely care about people, the system won't work. So you don't have to go very far into the components to figure out if this is going to help you or not. The third component is data. And so organizations are either flying blind, they don't have a real handle on the data that's driving their business, or they're absolutely swamped by data. They got so many numbers and statistics, they can't make heads or tails of it. So it's having the right kind of a data component that helps you make better database decisions based on facts rather than egos, opinions, and emotions. And so just being strong in those three components in a company like that, in an organization like that, there's just really no place to hide. And so anything that's holding you back or could propel you forward kind of drops into that issues component. And when I use the word issue, what immediately pops into people's minds are, it's a problem, right? No one looks at an issue as a good thing. They just look at issues as bad, as being bad. But an issue is just a topic. It's something that has to be addressed. So it's either something that's holding us back or potentially something that could propel us forward. And we just have to get really good at solving those issues. And there is a frustration there in a lot of organizations. They're just not very good at identifying, discussing, and solving their issues. And then the fifth component is process. So do we have a documented way of defining how we do what we do? And this is a little scary for a lot of businesses, Matt, because I'll ask that question. How many people do you have in your organization that are within 3 years of retirement? And boy, I'll tell you what, those are the people that unfortunately have a lot of tribal knowledge, but none of that knowledge and expertise has ever been documented. So understanding at a high level, what are those key processes that really define how we do what we do? If that's not identified and documented and followed by everybody, you're at risk. And then the last component, the other thing about process is it helps you run a more consistent business and it helps you scale your business. And then that last component is traction. So this is having the discipline and accountability to really deliver on that vision. You mentioned earlier, we did a good job of setting goals, but then you get to that point where you lose track of those goals. And I live that life myself. You go through all the strategic planning, you get to the end of the year and no one can remember what the goals were. Not surprisingly, a lot of them don't happen. So having a strong traction component is about having a great meeting pulse and making sure that everybody is focused on quarterly priorities, we call them rocks, that just ensure that those long-term goals and objectives are met. And that essentially is the model. That's sort of the model for EOS, and that's how we help people really address issues and move their organization forward.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for that overview. I just love the simplicity of the EOS model, and like you said, I think one of the biggest things for our industry, in particular, that we're seeing, and I know that it's across all industries really, because we're having a changing of the guard in terms of the workforce. We have the largest millennial, the millennials make up the largest portion of the workforce today, mm-hmm. and a lot of the, especially in our industry, a lot of the older sales reps and customer service agents, the people that understand how to take care of the customer, yep. Well, those folks are starting to cycle out, and we're cycling in new people. And they're coming into roles where there's no documented process, there's no vision communicated, or if there is a vision, it's probably poorly communicated. And this is really these 5 components really help a business owner get a grip on putting together a winning business model that will help them brace for the future and help them really stick around and be relevant, 10, 20, 30 years from now. So, I'm really, really excited to learn more about implementing it. So we talked a little bit about the pain points that are common to all businesses and certainly relevant to our industry. And we talked about, basically the EOS model and what it looks like in the 5 components. But I really am interested to know more about how to start implementing this stuff, because we talked before we got on the show, and it's one thing to read the book, but it's another thing to put what you read into practice. So I'm excited to learn more about that, and we're going to learn more about that and hear from Rene Boer on the other end of this break. So just hang on tight with us, guys. We'll be right back after a brief message from our sponsor. We were made for this industry. We've been learning, listening, and adapting for over 15 years. But I feel like we've only just begun. From the beginning, our mission was to help industrial suppliers grow their business. Today, the world is spinning faster than ever before, and we refuse to slow down because nothing less than the future is at stake. For many of our clients, we are the bridge between yesterday and tomorrow, helping them seize the moment today. You know, they say tigers starve last. Are you hungry? Are you playing offense, attacking the market and driving change? Or are you retreating to the boardroom, trying to figure out how to survive? Everything we do is about building relationships and brands that stand the test of time. So yeah, we're crazy passionate about helping you transform your business. That's our legacy. What's yours?
When ordinary signage won't do, armor up with a protection that's powerful enough to survive any environment. Duck Armor by Accuform. Designed to protect against scratches, scrapes, and impacts. Built to endure damaging chemical washing, graffiti resistant, and able to withstand UV yellowing or fading, plus cold weather cracking. Duck Armor is the original liquid laminate coating, pioneered by Accuform. Don't fall for a decoy.
Huh?
Get Duck Armor. We don't send strongmen into battle without armor. Get the sign coating you know will last against harsh abrasions, tough chemicals, taggers, and extreme environments. Duck Armor is tough enough for scratches, scrapes, impacts, weather, washing, sun, graffiti, and... What are you doing?
Oh, I was just gonna...
What? No. Why would you do that? Like all liquid laminate signs, Duck Armor's ultra-hard surface cleans easily, like water off a duck's back, and it withstands tough conditions, keeping your sign and message clear. But only Duck Armor can protect more than your signs, with over 90,000 products armed and ready. Not like that. Don't pay for protective coating on cheap sign material. Duck Armor gives you superior coating on premium signs at no extra cost. All the protection without the bill. Your facility deserves the best protection on the best signs. Durable and resilient. Light as a feather. Duck Armor has you covered.
All right, Rene, we're back. It's good to have you on again. Thank you for coming on the takeover. We've been talking about the EOS model, and we've been talking about the 5 components. We talked about the vision component, making sure that your team understands what you're trying to say, the people component, surrounding yourself with good people, the data component, understanding and building a scorecard and using KPIs to help you really make good decisions in your business. The issues component, which for me, that's a really important topic. I love how you talked about that's not just the bad things. This is about problem solving and really uncovering opportunities in your business. The process component, which was documenting all of those processes that we need to run a successful business. And then the traction component, putting this thing into action and making sure that we follow through on those strategic initiatives. So if I'm listening to this show and I'm hearing these things and I'm thinking, well, yeah, these are the things that I need to focus on. These are the areas where I've neglected for years, and I'm going to read the traction book and it sounds really good, or maybe I've already read the traction book and I love the message, and maybe I've been tiptoeing around implementing it. Maybe I've put a few of the tips and tricks into action, but how do I go about really implementing this thing the right way, Rene? Can you give us some insight on that?
Yeah, so there are 3 ways to implement, and the very first one, and this is what a lot of people do, is they'll read the book Traction, get very excited, and look at some of the tools that are in that book, and they just take those tools and start implementing them. So as an example, one of the tools is the level 10 meeting agenda. Most organizations, if you ask how effective are your meetings on a scale of 1 to 10, and I know I've asked that question of hundreds and hundreds of people, on a scale of 1 to 10, the average is about a 3, maybe a 4 at a stretch. So lots of opportunities with meetings, and that's one of the tools. Another one is really getting clear on what the vision for your organization is. So there's a tool called the BTO. But if you really want to implement the system, there are 5 foundational tools that must be implemented with the leadership team and then driven into the entire organization, because the power behind EOS and the power behind Traction is to harness the energy of all the people in your company. So whether you have 10 employees or 500 employees, everyone must be engaged and involved. And of course, it takes longer to drive that down to 500 employees than it does to get it to 10. But that's the premise behind the entire system, is everyone must be involved. And so there's a systematic way of doing that. So the 5 foundational tools are the VTO. It's crafting the vision for your organization by answering 8 simple questions and getting everyone aligned around those. It's what we call the accountability chart, which looks a little bit like an org chart, but it's much, much more than that, because it defines the structure that you need to have to really help you grow your organization. And so often what I've observed, Matt, is the people issues that we have aren't really people issues. They're more structural issues related to that accountability chart, because people aren't clear on what their major roles and responsibilities and accountabilities are. And there's no transparency. So people really don't know what other people are supposed to be doing. And so that accountability chart and the transparency of it is, a tremendous tool to help propel an organization forward. And it's something that's continually updated as your company grows. The third tool is what we call rocks. And rocks are simply 90-day priorities. So what do we have to get done as an organization? What are the critical things that must be accomplished every 90 days to keep our annual goal on track and to help us make progress toward what we call the 3-year picture and the 10-year target? And then the fourth tool, and you mentioned earlier, this is one that you're using and you're a fan of, it's called the Level 10 Meeting Agenda. And it's a weekly meeting pulse for the leadership team that eventually gets used at a department level. But the whole purpose of this meeting is to increase team health, it's to solve issues, and it's to get stuff done. That's the purpose of that meeting. And when you think about it, shouldn't that be the purpose of any meeting? Increase team health.
Mm-hmm. Let me just say real quick too, that Level 10 meeting agenda has been a game changer for us. And I just could not even imagine going back to meetings without that agenda. Really is helpful. And we keep it on a running Google Doc so that it's always there. It's so that we can pick up right where we left off last week. And we have been able to power through issues like never before, just using that 90-minute meeting model.
Yeah, that's great. I'm glad to hear that. That's great. So then the fifth foundational tool is a scorecard. And so the value of a scorecard, and again, it starts with the leadership team, but eventually you have department level scorecards and you take it down through your organization. But the idea here is to think through the activities that can get measured on a weekly basis that help us predict future results. So as an example, and this is what makes a scorecard different than an income statement, is a lot of people will put and track, let's just say it's revenue on a monthly or weekly basis. Well, revenue is an end result of a whole lot of other things. And so what are those things that we better be tracking every week to ensure that revenue is even going to happen? And this is particularly important in a manufacturing environment that has a long manufacturing cycle. It takes sometimes a year to 18 months to 2 years from the time you implement to the time you actually start getting money in the door. Meanwhile, there's a huge drain on cash. So what are those things that we're looking at every week to ensure that revenue is really going to be coming in? Because if it's not, we're going to have a cash problem, right? Just an example of a great leading indicator. I had a transportation client, and the person who was sitting in the safety seat was asked by the owner, hey, what do you think is a number that we should have on that weekly scorecard? And the safety guy said, we should be tracking accidents. Well, as you know, an accident in a transportation company is an event that could put that company out of business. And so
Right.
the next question was, well, what's the best predictor that we're going to have an accident? And the number one thing, the safety guy had the answer to this one. He said, the number one thing is when people don't take their scheduled breaks and they're tired, we can track that. And unscheduled break, people that don't take scheduled breaks, that's the number one predictor of when an accident is likely to occur. So they started tracking that on a weekly basis and got tremendous results. And that led to a discovery of a whole bunch of other things. So it's the people that aren't taking those breaks, that probably don't maintain their vehicles or make sure the tires are safe.
Right.
And so,
Yeah, and
that's a very powerful
for us,
tool.
I see that we talk about that all the time with our clients in terms of business development and working with sales and marketing teams. It's not enough to just track the revenue. We have to work backwards. We have to talk about how many proposals or quotes are going out the door, and we have a quota for that, and we have a quota for the number of sales qualified leads and the number of touches that we need to have as a sales rep, and even going back to the amount of inquiries or visits to the website. Even those are all things that are leading indicators, as you said, that can help us predict that consistent revenue. So really good point. I think it's super relevant for our listeners.
Sure. Well, one final point on that scorecard too. Think about those numbers that you just mentioned. It's a heck of a lot easier to solve issues when you have the facts. And when you've got a number, there's, as John Adams said, facts are troublesome things. You just can't dodge a number.
That's awesome. And I think that is really helpful for us to kind of get our minds around what needs to happen in terms of, implementing this. I can tell you, and for those who are listening, you might be wondering where we are at in our journey. And we've done a lot of the things that Rene just talked about. We've implemented the level 10 meetings with the leadership team. We get together every week. We go over those rocks that we have set, those quarterly goals. We talk about our scorecard. Put together a scorecard. I'm a big golfer, so I love the idea of a scorecard. I love keeping score. I love seeing where we're at. So we have a scorecard and a Kpi Dashboard that we use to track those leading edge metrics. We go over that in our meeting, and if anything sticks out to us, we drop it down to our issues list. We go over our people, we go over our clients, and those issues get dropped down to an issues list, and we've been hammering those issues in that meeting. We've been identifying them, discussing them, solving them. We don't always get to them. We keep our meetings right around 90 minutes, but the nice thing is that we take care of what's most important, what's going to drive the most change for our business. And then if we need to, we'll tackle those issues next week when we have time. So our meetings don't drag on for 3 hours, and they're very, very productive. And then we've even started implementing those at the department level as well. So we have our department heads. They go through the meetings with their staff using the same L10 agenda, and we've been seeing tremendous success from that. I think the one thing that we need to continue to work on ourselves is really the traction, the last piece of the traction component, which is really making sure that we're following up on our goals, we're communicating that vision well to the whole team. Because I think you said something in the beginning that is, it's one thing to start implementing this, but really the experience, the power of the EOS model, you really need the whole company to be on board, don't you?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. You mentioned millennials earlier. I don't think anything's changed since the time that I started my business journey. I'm a baby boomer, by the way. Exact same thing. We all want to do work worth doing for a company that has a real purpose. We want to feel appreciated. We want to know where the heck we're going and why it's important. And we'd love to be shown a little appreciation.
That's right.
What's complicated about that?
Yeah, that's really good. I agree. Like, that's the thing we talk about a lot too. I talk about that with my clients. It's not, the millennials are not all that different. We have so many of these stereotypes, and sadly we see some of those things playing themselves out. But at the end of the day, we're just all human beings who want to find purpose and meaning in our careers, and want to be a part of something bigger than ourselves, and we want to have clear direction. And I think that as leaders, it's incumbent on us to really focus on delivering that clarity for not only for our employees, but for our customers as well. And I think that when they see that we have a good operating system, this makes us very attractive to work with as a partner. I would just ask Rene, like as we start closing up here, if I have a small team and I'm really engaged in trying to make the EOS system work, and maybe I've tried it a little bit myself. What are some tips as an implementer? What does an implementer do, and how might I be able to work with an implementer to help put this system into place?
Yeah. So what an implementer does first and foremost is teach the tools in a consistent manner, so that the use of the tools is done with the right intent. So the tools are pure, right? So lots of times, I know I have a tendency myself to do this, is to take something simple and overcomplicate it, right? So we all like to over-engineer everything. We see something that's simple, and we think, well, why is it so simple? Let's just add some stuff to it. So it's teaching the tools and the process in a very consistent way. Secondly, what a facilitator or what an EOS implementer does is really coach the entire team through the process, because just as a coach on a sideline has an unobstructed view of what's going on and can see things that are happening on the field that the players on the field can't see, that's a really, really important piece. And then the third piece is really facilitating. So the answers are always in the room. And a good facilitator is good at making sure that the right questions get asked, so that we pull those answers out of the people, because they have the answers. It's just thinking it through and being asked the right kinds of questions. So, an EOS implementer does that, teaches, coaches, and facilitates.
That's awesome. So, about how long would a typical engagement look like? Is this something where you come in, you do strategic planning with the team? Do you hang out do you come in for monthly or even weekly meetings? How involved are you as an implementer in the day-to-day leadership?
Exactly. So the difference is, we really believe as implementers that a company needs to get the traction piece in place before the vision piece. So it's always traction before vision. And the importance of that is, think about just, the basics. You got to have basic blocking and tackling in place to be able to execute. So an EOS implementation with an implementer starts with building the accountability chart, introducing rocks, because typically everyone's trying to solve everything at once. So it's really compartmentalizing and thinking about what's important now, what has to happen now, getting those rocks in place. It's teaching the meeting pulse, and that's a complete meeting pulse, not just the level 10 meeting, and then also building the scorecard. So with those tools in place, about 4 weeks later, we come back and then start the vision building process. And what we've learned is that companies will execute that vision a heck of a lot faster when they have those basic tools in place. Essentially the accountability chart, the rocks, the meeting pulse, and scorecard. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. I think, unfortunately, I might have done it backwards. So maybe that's what's going on.
And you know why? Because everybody does. So anybody that reads traction you like to kind of start with the fun stuff, right? And you're thinking, you know what? We need to establish, where we're going. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if you don't quickly follow that up with who's doing what and what has to happen now and how are we going to do it, something happens. It's called life. And all those 136 issues start piling up. And people think, well, that was great. That was a fun exercise. But I got my day job to do. And we get lost, and we very quickly start spending more time working in the business than spending time on the business. So an EOS implementer establishes a meeting pulse where 3 meetings happen within the first 60 days to lay the foundation. And then after that, it's every 90 days. So every 90 days we come up for air, we assess where we've been, we take a look at where we are, we determine where we're going. So it's always taking a look at how did we do on the rocks? Did we do what we said we were going to do? So there's a certain element of accountability there. It's then setting new rocks for the next 90 days and assessing, how are we doing against our goals, against our 3-year picture and our 10-year target.
That's awesome. We just came off of one of those meetings ourselves, so I know what that feels like. It feels very good to know that we made progress. But at the same time, we got a lot of work to do, and I think that just having those 90-day, meetings where we come back to the rocks, it's just so important for making the big driving change happen that we're hoping to see in our business.
Well, that's great. You sound like a model implementer, Matt.
I don't know. I think I might need a little help, but like I said, maybe after this call we'll talk about how I could get some of your help. So if I'm listening, Rene, and somebody's interested in learning more about what you do as an EOS implementer, where can they find out more about you?
Well, you can reach me at my email address. It's Rene, RENE, at tractionprocess.com. Listeners can also go to the EOS Worldwide website. It's eosworldwide.com. There are 213 professional implementers around the world. So help is a phone call away. And that's probably the easiest way to get engaged with someone.
Awesome. That's eosworldwide.com. And Rene, you are a very cool person to talk to, man. We really appreciated you coming on the show, telling us about the EOS model and implementing it. I know I'm grateful. It really helped me capture, wrap my mind around where I've maybe made some mistakes and maybe some things that I can do better as I go about my own implementation. But thank you so much for coming on the takeover. It's been an absolute pleasure, sir, and I will talk to you very soon.
All right. Thanks for inviting me, Matt. Take care.
Okay, bye-bye. All right, folks, we're going to wrap this thing up. Thank you for sticking in there with us. I hope that you were as impressed with the EOS model as I was when I first read it. And I hope that just whetted your appetite for going out and looking up the Traction book. If you haven't read it already, definitely get out there and purchase this book. This could be a game changer for your business. It certainly has been so far for me. And as you heard, I'm in the middle of implementing it myself. And that's what the takeover is all about. It's about you coming along, looking at what I'm doing, and listening to some of the people that are influencing me. And hopefully this stuff was helpful for you, and hopefully you can take it back to your team and begin putting some of these things into practice. Now, next week, I'm excited about what we're going to be doing. We're going to be having. Oh wait, I got to look to my producer. Is it Lindsay on the show or is it Wayne?
Wayne.
It's Wayne. Okay, thank you. See, making this stuff up as I go, guys. Wayne is going to be on the show. That's my dad, guys. It's going to be awesome. He is the CEO of AccuForm. He's going to come on the show, and we're going to talk about customer service, building a culture that says yes, we can to our customers. I can't wait for you to come and be a part of that. So be sure to come join us next week. And remember that you can subscribe to the show on YouTube, on iTunes, on SoundCloud, or on our website. You can visit the website. It's thetakeoverpodcast.com. That's thetakeoverpodcast.com. And remember, this is the show for B2B business leaders who are learning to grow their business, drive positive change, and build a legacy that stands the test of time. Get out there and make it happen. See you next time.